So this is module 18 on Leonhard Euler. And think about how you say his last name. It's Euler. He was Swiss, so use the German pronunciation just like you would with Freud, not like you would use with Euclid and the Greek pronunciation. So Euler is his last name. And we're going to just talk through the PowerPoint and give you a background on what you need for, no, that's not right, what you need for the homework, working some of those problems, share the screen. That's what I wanted to do. All right. I mentioned that he was a Swiss mathematician. He was born in Switzerland, Basel, Switzerland in 1707. He died in St. Petersburg, Russia in 1783. Throughout his lifetime, he moved from Switzerland to Germany, to Russia, to Switzerland, to Germany and back and forth. So he was moving from one school in Germany to another school in Russia, back and forth. When he died, he was actually in St. Petersburg in Russia. He made contributions in just about every field there was at the time. He was known as a universal mathematician. His contributions to the development of algebraic symbolism cannot be talked about enough. I mean, we're going to recognize a lot of the work that he did there. He's known as the most prolific of all mathematicians, which means he wrote more than everybody else. So we've got a lot of his work behind him. Let's pause this. All right, so let's try this again. Go back to Euler. And I mentioned he was prolific. He published a lot. He also left a lot of work that was unpublished when he died. So it took many years before mathematicians worked through all of that. And they may still be working through some of it, but it was a huge project to try to work through all of his documents and all of his papers and to organize it and to see what all he had worked on. And he became totally blind in 1777, before 1771. Before that, he had lost his sight in one eye and then lost his sight completely in both eyes. And still that didn't slow him down very much. Even in the last 10 or 12 years of his life, he continued to work. He had many children. Only 5 of his children lived to be adults and outlived him. But one of his sons was very helpful to him when he was blind, as the son would write things down for him and keep notes for him and keep all of those documents for him. So what do we know him for? I mentioned the algebraic symbolism. In 1777, he introduced I as the square root of -1. Thanks to Euler, we have E for that exponential function. He named the number and then calculated it to a lot of decimal places, did that in 1727. 1734, hold on just a second. Yeah, that's right. 1734 also used the functional notation f of x. We had mentioned that in terms of Leibniz using it with respect to the calculus, and Euler was using it more generally for all functions. He used pi as the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. So that was the first time that there was a common name for that number. Used the summation symbol, used the modern notation for trig functions. So just the fact that he wrote so much and so much, so often, so quickly, he had to have some kind of symbolism, and it was out there in front of people. So people began to use it. Euler identity, you have a problem related to this. E to the ix equals the cosine of x plus I times the sine of x. And when you let x equal pi, you get this equation that is considered the most beautiful of all equations because it involves the 5 numbers, e, I, pi, 1, and 0. So e to the I pi plus 1 equals 0 is a very important equation known as the Euler equation. not the Euler formula. That's something a little bit later on. The Euler identity is on that first line. E to the I pi plus 1 equals 0 is frequently called the Euler equation. Euler's formula, this is what I had just mentioned. Euler's formula connects or represents the relationship between the number of vertices, faces, and edges of any polyhedron. Now, here on this slide, I've got pictures of the 5 platonic solids. The platonic solids, there are only 5 of them, and all of the sides are made up of regular polygons. So you've got 3 of them with triangles, the tetrahedron, octahedron, icosahedron. You've got the cube with square sides, and you've got the dodecahedron with regular pentagons as sides. Now, those are the only 5 platonic solids. And if you look at the one on the far left, the tetrahedron is a triangular pyramid. So the base is a triangle, the sides are triangles. You've got the apex is that point up at the top. So you've got 4 vertices, the one at the top, 3 on the bottom. You've got 4 faces, the one that it sits on, and then the other 3 triangles. So 4 plus 4 is 8 that you get on the left-hand side. The edges, well, that's where 2 faces meet. So that's the line segment where the faces meet. And I've got the 3 that I could hold onto it from the top, and then the 3 on the bottom. So that's 6. So I can verify that pretty quickly with the tetrahedron. 4 plus 4 equals 6 plus 2. So verify that with the other ones. And this is for any polyhedron. This is not just these platonic shapes. It's the other Archimedean polyhedron, which are polyhedras where the sides are regular polygons, but they're not all the same shape. So think of a soccer ball where you've got you've got pentagons and hexagons. That's called an arc. That's one of the Archimedean polyhedra. But think of a shoebox. A shoebox is a polyhedron, and the sides are rectangles, maybe squares on the ends, kind of depending, but use that square box, that shoebox, and you will be able to verify this formula. Okay, the Königsberg bridge problem is well known and is connected to Euler. The idea, and this is real life, there was the city of Königsberg, which used to be in Germany and now I believe is in Russia. And there was a river that ran through the city. So the city is on both sides of the river, and there are 2 islands in the river. And there are bridges that connect. There's one bridge that connects the 2 islands. And then the bridge on the left, you can see, is connected to each side of the river by 2 bridges each. And the other island is connected to the sides of the river by 1 bridge. So the question is, could you walk across all 7 of these bridges without retracing your steps, without going over the same bridge twice? Oh. So if you want to try it, pause it for a second, see if you can do it. This problem is the problem that generated modern graph theory. And that's our class, Math 3116. Some of you might actually be taking it this summer. I can't remember if it's offered in the fall or not. I think it's 3116. It might be 3166. But the graph theory is offered always in the first summer session, and then you'll see either fall or spring next year. As it turns out, this one cannot be done. So this problem cannot be solved in this form. So, you might think, well, what could I do? Could I build some more bridges? Could I take some away? What about another island? What would make this a traversable path? And that's what Euler started to work on. And he started to think about, how would you represent this? So he represented the problem as a graph, and the 4 points are the land, represent the land. The arcs or the line segments represent the bridges. And he used the terms vertices and arcs. An Euler circuit is one of these graphs in which each arc can be traversed once and only once. And so if you study graph theory, you're going to learn about Euler circuits, Euler paths, all kinds of different things related to this. So I hope you get a chance to take it. That's a really interesting class and would be very useful for some of you who are computer science majors. Okay, that's it for Euler. See you in module 19 on Carl Gauss.